Today we're doing a little update on my favorite books that live rent-free in my brain. They own property in my brain. I think the definition of a favorite book is going to change based on who you're asking, but for me personally, a favorite book is a book that evokes a lot of emotion out of me. It's something that really sticks with me. It also might be something that's super thought-provoking for me, or something that really just relates to my life, relates to my feelings, and all of these books fit that criteria. I love these books. I guard them with my life, and these are the books that I probably will not ever lend to anybody because I need them in my room at all times to feel safe. Enough chit chat, I'm just gonna jump right into it. Here are the 8 books that live rent-free in my brain. We're going to start off with the beautiful Hunger Games. While I'm recording this, it is November 13th, and that means The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes comes out this week. This is like my Super Bowl. This Thursday is going to be the biggest day of the year for me, so do not reach out to me unless it is about that movie. Please, just a warning in advance. I love this series, and I will defend this series till I die. If you're unfamiliar with the Hunger Games, I feel like most people know what it is by now because of the movies. However, if you don't, the Hunger Games is a YA dystopian fantasy. This is about this futuristic America known as Pan Am. It is a post-war country, and the country is split up into districts and a capital. The capital is where the rich and the privileged live. They don't have to work. You could kind of compare them to how celebrities dress for the Met Gala. It's very eclectic, it's very extravagant. There's even a mention in the books and the movie about this drink that they take so that they can throw up everything and eat more. They just have everything in abundance, while all of the capitals are living very scarce and hungry lives. They all work nonstop. They can barely provide for their families. They barely have enough food, and to make matters worse, every year they have to participate in the Hunger Games, which is a battle to the death where each district has to volunteer 2 children, a boy and a girl, to go to the capital and fight to the death in an arena. And that is what the Hunger Games is about. We're following the 74th Hunger Games, and our main character, Katniss, is the star of this book. Her younger sister gets picked in her very first year of the Reaping to go to the capital and be in the Hunger Games, and Katniss volunteers as a tribute in place of her sister, and we follow Katniss and her experience being in the Hunger Games with Peeta Mellark, who is a boy from her town. He's very quiet, he's a baker's son, he's a little more well off than her, and there's a lot of tension between the two because of that. There's also a lot of romantic tension between the two of them. It's phenomenal. If you're someone who likes political YA fantasy, a dystopian world, this series is incredible. If you've seen the movies and you haven't read the books, please read the books, because honestly, they are just as good as the movie. I don't even want to say they're better, because the movies did such an incredible job at portraying the books. They're just phenomenal. 5 stars for every single book in that series. Okay, the next book we are on to is The Invisible Life of Addie Laro by V.E. Schwab. I have 2 copies of this book. This is the original hardback, and I also have the special edition illustrated version. If that doesn't prove that that is my favorite book of all time, I don't know what will. This book is gorgeous and beautifully written. It is like a fantasy fiction kind of book. It's heartbreaking. Our main character is a woman living in the 1700s in France. It's the night before her wedding, and she wants nothing less than to get married. She doesn't want to be owned by a man, which in the 1700s, getting married is basically being sold to a man, so she doesn't want to be married. She wants to live a very independent life, and she wants to get out of the small village in France that she lives in. The night before her wedding, she makes a deal with the devil for eternal freedom and eternal life. And in return, no one can remember her. So she, on the one hand, is granted her wish, and she does not have to get married. She has eternal freedom. She can travel wherever she would like. However, she also will never be remembered. She makes the deal, however, and we follow her experience over centuries up to present time, trying to survive without any sort of footprint. We see how hard it is for her to make money. We see how hard it is for her to make relationships. She falls in love with the same person over and over and over again, only for them to forget her. And finally, this takes us to present-day New York City, and she meets someone in a bookstore. She thinks she has a connection with him, but Obviously, she's not putting too much hope into it because she knows as soon as she leaves the bookstore, he will forget her. She comes back the next day and he remembers her, and it is the first person in 300 years to remember her. So the story is following her, trying to figure out how does he know her, why is he the only person in the world in the past 300 years to remember her. And it's just an incredible story about love and grief and pain, and it's so good. And the devil's personified in the story, which I love a good personification of the devil. He's like a character you love to hate, but you just love him. So one of those kinds of books. There's a lot of romance, there's a lot of tension. It's phenomenal, and I think you'll sob. I don't know how you wouldn't sob reading this, so yeah, that is my favorite book. The next one we have is Hester. This is by Laro Albanese. So Hester follows the story of Isabel Gamble. She is just married in Scotland, and her husband are traveling overseas to America to live in Salem, Massachusetts. This is post-witch trial Salem. However, there's still rumblings of witchcraft and people are still being accused of it. So we follow Isabel as she arrives in Salem and her husband boards a ship to be a medic. While he's out at sea, she meets Nathaniel Hawthorne, who, yes, is the author of A Scarlet Letter, and the two form this very intricate and complicated relationship, and we kind of dive into the implications that this has for Isabel, while there are no implications for Nathaniel. She has to be very careful with what she says and how she acts, because there's a very good chance a woman living on her own on the outskirts of a town could be accused of witchcraft. She also has this ability called synthenesia, where she sees colors surrounding things, surrounding people, surrounding ideas, surrounding words, and she knows that if she ever speaks of that, she will immediately be accused of being a witch. So she's trying to hide that ability while she's also trying to hone it. It's very complicated for her. We're kind of touching on the struggles of being a female living in this time period in America, and the way that we are taught that independence and freedom and all of the stuff that comes with it was starting to become more prevalent. However, there are still so many ways that women are restricted, and it's just so sad. But it's so gorgeous. It's such a fun book. We learn a lot about Nathaniel Hawthorne and his ties to the Salem witch trials, and it's just incredible. Another really sad book, but if you're someone who's really interested in historical fiction and in witchcraft, you'll love this book. Going along with the topic of witchcraft, we have Cersei by Madeline Miller. This was my favorite book up until I read The Invisible Life of Addie, so I'm going to say this is a close second. This follows Cersei, who is typically known as a side character in Odysseus' story. However, in this story, she is the main character. If you're unfamiliar with Cersei, she is a witch who lives by herself on an island, and Odysseus comes across this island, and Cersei turns all of his men into pigs. So she is this evil witch in his story. He falls in love with her, and she curses his men, and she's just kind of seen as this evil and hateful woman. However, in this story, we see her complete story, and she is so much more than that. So we follow Cersei as a child. She is the daughter of Helios, which is the sun god, and she is neglected very early on. She's not like her siblings, she's not like her mother, she's not like her father, and ultimately she gets banished and sent off to live on this deserted island on her own. When she's there, she discovers that she has the power of witchcraft, and she kind of takes that and hones it. She speaks to animals, and she tries to use it for good. However, after years and years and centuries of being hurt and being mistreated and abused and neglected, enough's enough for Cersei, and she starts to take out her anger through her witchcraft. Just an incredible story about female rage and the way that Greek mythology really tends to frame women in such a negative light. So we are spinning the story around. This is also the same author who wrote The Song of Achilles, so if you loved that, definitely try this one. Alright, we have a visitor. We have a little visitor. Hi, little baby. He wants to hear about the books, so he's just gonna be here. Hopefully he doesn't make too much noise. Alright, the next book we have is A Dowy of Blood. I need to take a breath before I talk about this one because it makes me so mad in a good way. So this is a Dracula and his bride's retelling. It's basically In a nutshell, a story about a very toxic, abusive relationship, but told through the lens of Dracula. There's polyamory in the story, however, it is a terrible example of polyamory. It's probably an example of what polyamory should not be. So it's definitely a story not to glorify polyamory, however, it's a story to kind of touch on abuse and violence in relationships. I hope I'm wording that correctly, and I hope you're understanding what I'm saying by that. Let's do a little rundown of this book. We are following our main character. She is a young woman living in this village. Her village was just attacked by an army, and her village is attacked. It is basically desecrated. It's gone. Her whole entire family has been killed, and she is the only one left. She's on the brink of death, however. Dracula finds her, and he turns her into a vampire, and thus begins the story of their life together. Their story spans over centuries, different cities, and different partners, and we are following our main character, who is just put through so much through this relationship, and she just remains loyal through and through, and it is just heartbreaking in that sense, but it's a super interesting story about relationship. It's a fairly quick read, so if you're looking for something to kind of fly through, something that's a little bit darker, a little bit scary, this is this is definitely a great pick for you. I loved this one. Alright, on the lighter end of things, here is a romance. Yes, I'm picking a romance as one of my favorite books ever. I know, I'm surprised too. This is a Regency era romance called A Lady's Guide to Fortune Hunting by Sophie Irwin. So this follows our main character, Kitty Talbot, who is coming from a family who... Zeus, can you stop? Our main character, Kitty Talbot, is coming from a family who is in a lot of debt. Her parents have passed, and it is up to her as the oldest sibling to provide for her sisters and get them all out of this crippling debt. So she goes into London and participates in the London season to try to find a rich husband who will pay off all of their debt. She has no doubt that she'll find somebody, however, she does not expect Lord Radcliffe to come into the picture and to immediately see right through her and to see her plan and to try to foil it. So every ball that she attends, he is there, and he is at her foot trying to foil all of her plans. You can kind of see what is going to happen. It's a little bit of like an enemies, rivals to lovers kind of story, and I just love the settings that Sophie Irwin creates. I love the characters she creates. It's such a lighthearted, fun read, and it's kind of introduced me to the genre of Regency era, as well as like cozy Regency era and like cozy mysteries in this era. It's just like, it's just the best. So if you haven't read like a Regency era book, this is your sign. The next book we have is House of Salt and Sorrow by Erin A. Craig. I'm going to start off immediately by saying Erin A. Craig is someone who can create the most atmospheric and dark books, and I love it. That is the main reason why I'm picking this as one of my favorite books, because the setting of it is just really something that has stuck with me. At its core, this is a story about a family of, I think, 8, 9, 10 sisters. They slowly start to mysteriously die, and it is up to our main character, Annalee, to figure out what is happening, and it's one of those books where you don't know what's real and what's not, and I love those. It's also set on like this very dark and gloomy estate by the shore. It's mysterious, there's ghost vibes, it's creepy, it's so good. Okay, the final book we're going to discuss today is Ace of Spades. This is a young adult thriller, and this is described as a mixture of Get Out and Gossip Girl, which is such a weird combination, and it works so well. So this story takes place at a private, predominantly white academy. We are following the only 2 black students at this high school who are starting to become the target of a mysterious texter known as Aces. Each week, Aces is sending out a text to the entire student body that is revealing these 2 students' deepest secrets. It's clear to the 2 of them that they are the only ones being targeted and that they are the only black students at this school. So we follow the journey of the 2 of them trying to figure out why they are being targeted, and who Aces is. The writing is amazing, and it so cohesively mixes the aspects of thrillers and mysteries with heavy topics like race and class, and it basically is a thriller about institutionalized racism. I feel like a lot more people need to read this book. I just feel like it's an important read, but also a super entertaining read, so it's like great choice. Okay, so there are my current favorites. I hope I did them justice because they are just so near and dear to my heart and they deserve all the love in the world, and I hope I was able to describe them properly to give you like a good idea of what they actually are. Yeah, so if you read any of these, let me know your thoughts, please. I'd love to talk about them with you guys. And I guess that is it for this video. If you liked it, please remember to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time.